Over the years, you and I have driven a hell of a lot of Porsche Panameras, and by far our favorite surprise of surprises would be the one with the V8. Now yes, there are others like Ford that have proven that power can be obtained through V6, twin turbocharged, that kind of stuff. However, what happens when you layer on electrification to that? And you do it in something that isn't a pickup truck? Do you still retain that certain je ne sais quoi? Okay, so let's kick this off with the obvious question. Aside from a twin turbocharged V6, how is this different from all the other Porsche Panameras you and I have driven? Well, this one's a hybrid, which means it has an electric motor that is grafted on, or at least attached to, a 2.9 twin turbocharged V6. Now that V6 we've driven before in gas-only versions, and that one's 443 horsepower, 405 pound-feet of torque. However, when you graft on the electric motor, there's an additional 134 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. Now, as we have learned in many hybrid episodes, you can't really just add those numbers to get total system output. Instead, this is 552 horsepower, 553 pound-feet of torque. Now, that translates to somewhat respectable fuel economy. This is more about performance, not really about making it the most efficient Panamera on the planet. 21, 24, 23 combined, and this being a plug-in hybrid, it would be prudent for us to discuss MPGe. That is understandably significantly better, 48, 54, 51 combined, which brings us to the obvious question of EV-only driving range. And there, 17.9 kilowatt hour battery. Translated into English, that's a small battery, so this is rated for about 18 miles of total EV driving range. Now, you and I have beaten that in the 4S, that beautiful truffle brown executive model that wasn't a Sport Turismo. This one is a Sport Turismo. That one we pushed it to 21 miles of range, and that was a German market car. This is a US market car. Now, I will give you one guess as to what the 4 means in the name of this vehicle. Now, that brings us to yet another aspect you and I may not find particularly surprising, the transmission choice, an 8-speed PDK, which works in conjunction with everything else we just discussed to deliver performance figures that don't suck. 0 to 60, 3.5 seconds. Now, yes, that's with launch control, but let me remind you, that's sort of a family car. VMAX, 185 miles an hour. Once again, feel the need to remind you, that is a Panamera that doesn't have a V8. Now, it would stand to reason, a hybrid, not exactly lightweight, which would be the correct assumption, 5,042 pounds, or depending on how you express your weights and measures, 2,287 kilograms. As a point of information, that is about 120 pounds lighter than the executive long wheelbase model of the same vehicle we drove a couple of months back with that Sport Plus mode. Oh yes. Oh yes! Oh yeah, I'd say that feels like a V8. As a matter of fact, let's back off a little bit going into these turns here. I'd say it's very similar to the 4S e-hybrid with the longer wheelbase we drove previously. However, this one is just a bit sharper, and that is indeed reflected in the 0 to 60 time. This is 1/10 of a second faster, but it just feels different because the car is shorter. It feels a bit lighter on its feet. It does work incredibly well with the 8-speed PDK. There is not a time where I am denied shifts, which is one of the reasons why I love this transmission. This is a completely different kettle of fish in that we usually get CVTs with hybrids. This rather is a double whammy. We get real gears and gears that we can control, but then most importantly, the 2 propulsion systems, not only are they geared towards performance, but something happens with this mode, the Sport Plus mode, where there's a significant delta between the basic mode and the Sport Plus, where the car just comes alive. If you were to get behind the wheel of this thing in the regular mode, I don't think people would be that impressed. It's good. It drives kind of like a Porsche, but one that's more leisurely. It has a different kind of pace. But here, it is reminiscent of the way a V8 delivers power. a good one at that. Now, all the power delivery is certainly lovely, but it's really about the driving dynamics. And we've got to separate it out from the car we drove previously, because that car had a longer wheelbase. It's the executive model. It's a bit closer in length to, say, a 5 Series or an E-Class. It's not that short. Those are about 115 to 117. This is a little bit longer than that. So layering on 2 propulsion systems and tuning it to this level of propulsion, it changes the driving dynamics. And the biggest thing that stands out here, the brakes, believe it or not. The brakes up front, 410 millimeters, in the back 365 millimeters. As a basis of comparison, the most basic 911 comes standard with 330 millimeter rotors. In a turbo, a 911 turbo, 2022, 410 millimeters in the front of that vehicle. Now, admittedly, a car that weighs 5,000 pounds needs more stopping power, but it's beyond that. It's not just compensating for the extra weight or the length or size of the vehicle. It's stopping power that works incredibly well when one pushes it this aggressively. There is no like ifs, ands, or buts about it. It drives like a proper Porsche, not just a Porsche with a V6 engine, but a Porsche that has some chassis control options, which this car has, and arguably the thing that works in conjunction with that braking is the PDCC and the 4-wheel steering. The biggest thing for Cayennes and Panameras is that 4-wheel steering, because what it does, it shortens the wheelbase of the vehicle, and that's something that's incredibly important because these things aren't starved for power, and in this case, it's a hybrid that doesn't have that on-off switch for the brakes. So not only can you drive it aggressively, it doesn't feel weird. It doesn't have that like awkward personality of feeling like brakes that are fitted to a Prius. This feels like natural brakes one would have in a regular Porsche. I guess what I'm trying to say here is it's a hybrid, but it's a regular Porsche. Yes, it is indeed that time again to play your favorite game, Mind the Absence game, with today's contestant. Yet another Porsche, finished in gentian blue. This one, the 2022 Porsche Panamera 4 SE Hybrid, still not done yet, Sport Turismo, for $117,300. Now, yes, that color does cost extra, but I want to clarify here. I am a big fan of gentian blue. Stunning color. The problem is, every car that we have been sent that has been finished in gentian blue sadly has always come with a black interior. Now, black could work with silver. Black could work with even red. However, gentian blue, it needs like a cognac interior, a saddle, maybe even a light gray. It needs a high contrast between the exterior to the interior for it to work. So my request to the folks in Atlanta, particularly who are ordering these cars, can we do something that doesn't have a black interior? Because then I would gladly spend the $840 on gentian blue. Pressing on to the rear axle steer system, very important for any Panamera, well worth $1,650. Then we press on to something that I don't know if it's worth it, but I kind of need it, the Sport exhaust with the black chrome tips. This is built in $3,860. Now, you and I are used to Porsche charging a lot for options, but that's kind of a new stratosphere. Can we make this like $1,500 and call it a day? Then we press on to another incredibly important option for both Cayennes as well as Panameras, the PDCC, which includes Porsche Torque Vectoring Plus, $5,010, absolutely transforms the way this car drives and is the reason why we were able to push it in the canyons as we are today. Then we press on to the heated steering wheel, optional on a $117,000 car, $590. Then the stunning 21-inch turbo wheels, $4,030. Smoking package, optional for $90. Now, I love me a cigar, as you guys know if you follow me on Instagram, but I would never smoke in this car. Then the 7.2 kilowatt charger here, $840. Now, you and I need to circle back to the paint specification of this particular Panamera, which most would agree is a stunning blue. However, it does not work well with black high gloss window trim. May I suggest the same satin finish aluminum trim that one would find on a GT3 Touring. Thus, I would not pay the $420 for this option. Then there is the premium package. This includes the soft closed doors, the 4-zone climate control, which I think is a big deal, and the ambient lighting. However, you and I, we've become used to Porsche charging a lot for options, and most of them I can go along with. However, this one, as much as I would want the 4-zone climate control, I don't think I could part with $6,380 for it. Once again, how about $3,000, call it a day? Then the only other thing we add here is destination and handling. Von Zuffenhausen, Deutschland, $1,350 for a total retail price of $142,360. Now, considering what the car is, and if we were to break down the reason why we do what we do to its root level, that answer would be for science, which means we got to go to here and hit this button here and try this thing in EV mode. Oh, and in all that canyon storming, we built up 8 miles of range. 8! So it's about half the total charge, and it drives like a Porsche Panamera. I can't honestly tell you there is a huge difference here. Although I do like the concept of using this thing around town on full sunshine mode, and I can get away with that because my commute is like 9 miles each way. So I can commute to the hangar, plug the car in, have a total charge, and then drive it home and not use any gas. As a matter of fact, that is my goal for the entire week or so I have this vehicle, is not to use a drop of gas outside of this trip up to the canyons and back. And with that, I do want to demonstrate one thing for you guys as we get around this turn here. Drop the hammer, gas engine comes back on. So there is no aggressive driving in EV mode. And so that brings us full circle to the question from the top of the episode. Why, yes, this is indeed a legitimate V8 replacement. So much so, it's one of the best V8 replacements you and I have driven over the past couple of years, which brings us to the wish list. And here I kind of got nothing because it's a German station wagon and it's got over 500 horsepower. So let's go like macro Panamera level. If I'm reading the tea leaves correctly, they are working on the next generation of Panamera. So think of this as like an open letter to the folks that are doing the engineering and the design of that vehicle. With this and the Cayenne, you went more screens, you went more haptic feedback, capacitive touch. I'm not one of the cool kids that goes for these screens, but I get it, you need it to sell cars. Can we come up with a happy medium? Less haptic feedback, less capacitive touch, more knobs, more toggle switches, more scroll wheel, that kind of stuff. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a design nerd. I'm saying that because of safety. And that is just the reality of it. In fact, you recently donated one of your cars to your corporate cousin. And you had this cool infotainment system, which I'll admit is pretty good, but has no knobs, no buttons, no nothing. However, they put in the knobs and buttons, and frankly, that system, it's better. Just saying. Which is the point of the episode where I turn this around to you guys to apply in the comments below, or via our social media, MotoManTV, all one word, MotoManTV, all one word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, as lovely as this experience has been, to seek out an efficient V8 alternative, the very next Porsche you and I are going to drive is indeed going to be a V8. So until I see you in that episode, bis später.